But first, I'm so happy to welcome Connie Canaday Howard to the show, who is directing a Shakespearean classic for college theater this semester. Welcome, Connie.
Hi.
So I didn't say the name of the play for fear it would be bad luck.
Right.
So it's that Shakespeare play,
That's
the one that
right.
has a big myth about it.
Right. Scottish play.
The Scottish play. So can you tell everybody what it's about?
Yeah. So I'm talking about the character now, so I can say the name. It's about Macbeth, and Macbeth was a figure in history, as was Duncan, as was Banquo, and Shakespeare took the real life version as it came down through history in Holinshed's Chronicles, and then fictionalized it. So it's really about someone who, or perhaps you could say more than someone, some people who usurp power and sort of knock, in the Renaissance there was not a prevalent, not the only point of thought, but there was a belief in what's called the great chain of being, that everybody's in their place and that's when things work in harmony. And when something knocks that chain out of whack, everything goes out of whack. And so Macbeth seizes power, and that starts a cycle of more and more violence until enough people stand up for what's right. Even though they know they may be defeated, they stand up for what's right and ultimately are successful.
So do you like directing Shakespeare?
Love it.
How many times have you directed this show?
Only once.
Really?
Yeah, only one other time this show. Yeah.
And why do you like it? Why do you like, what draws you to Shakespeare?
Shakespeare, I've liked Shakespeare since I was in high school, but I really became more impassioned by Shakespeare when I was in college and then in graduate school. And I became a Shakespeare scholar. And I think his themes are timeless and so relevant today. I wish, honestly, they weren't, but
they always are, right?
Yes, yes. And so the need to stand up for what's right, even when you are in the minority and you know it may come at tremendous cost to you or to those you love, is really what the piece is about. And unfortunately, I think that is a really relevant theme for today.
True. I think with Shakespeare, for a younger student, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's super hard. How do you approach that differently to help the students wrangle this?
Yeah, I think, even if I were working with professional actors, the approach is generally the same. It's the method that's different. So Shakespeare, as with all playwrights in this time, wrote direction into the language of this piece. It's called scansion. And so with students who've never scanned before, we break it down. Our first rehearsal was a breakdown. It was a Shakespeare workshop. Entirely on language, not even on history. And then the history is coming through rehearsal as we're working scenes. And with professional actors, you probably wouldn't do that scansion workshop, but you keep referring back to something's wrong in that line, something's not scanning correctly, let's break it down. Okay, there's a alliteration here, or there's an antithetical here, or there's it's a short verse line, so what does that mean? It's a shared verse line, what does that mean? So the reason for that was that, they do as many as 40 plays in a year at a theater company.
Right.
So mounting something or remounting something usually was 2 days of rehearsal, and many of the actors didn't read. So they learned their role through rote and then owned the language. So, there were all of these hints. And, even though it's direction, you can choose a different approach for a line, of course. It's not written in stone. There's no theater god that's going to strike you down if you do something different. But you need to know why you're doing it differently if you decide to do that.
So are you changing the period in this interpretation of it, or how are you?
Well, when it was first produced, it was produced in the Renaissance, even though it was about warrior Scotland, 11th century Scotland. We're doing it in warrior Scotland.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're doing it in the correct period.
Correct.
Traditionally.
Yep.
What are the challenges?
Scanning is one, time is one.
Explain time.
Well, it goes up in November. And so that's a lot of time, but it's a lot of time with a piece that is different than other contemporary pieces. So a scene that's going to play for maybe, 2, 3, 5 minutes, rehearsal time is more like hours.
Right.
Coming back to it, building on it. It's sort of like an onion where you're adding layers every time you rehearse. And then there's stage combat. There's moving in costumes. We have another non-traditional thing that we're doing is we have some women playing women as warriors, which would have been period correct, but not necessarily what is often done with the script. So, Lennox is a woman, Menteith is a woman, that kind of thing. So,
often though it was men played women's roles.
Correct.
Often, right?
Correct.
One thing that I find interesting about Shakespeare, and I recall in college, my college professor was crazy for Shakespeare. And I remember seeing shows and being like, until I saw one, and then it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I remember my professor saying, when people do it right, every moment is understandable.
Correct.
It's when they're disconnected that you're like, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Right.
And I think that's the challenge, is to do it right. When it's done right, you understand every second, And I think that's a hard thing for people to understand, is that it's graspable, but it's also better to I think, go in understanding a little bit of the concept of what are you seeing before you go in. Read a synopsis, understand what you're seeing before you see it. So, how are things going so far?
Good. Good. Yeah.
You're ready?
Oh no, we're not ready, but we're in there. We're working, and we will be ready. So it's a lot of fun. It's a big cast. 27.
How many people?
27.
That is a big cast.
Yeah. So and most people are. The way that we're doing it, I've rearranged the play a little bit, which was often done during Shakespeare's time. One, so nobody else could steal it, and another reason, they were working on the structure and what should happen when, et cetera, et cetera. So there's precedent for it, and we're doing. I don't know what to call it. I'm telescoping some scenes, so I'm playing 3 scenes, portions of the scene, and freeze framing. So you're seeing what's happening at the same moment in different environments.
Oh, interesting.
And that we've started to work on, but will really need to come in October and into November. But I think it's going to be exciting.
It's going to be fabulous.
Yep.
Thank you for coming to tell everybody about the show. I'm excited to see it. College Theater's Macbeth runs November 14th through the 24th. Get your tickets now by visiting atthemac.org or by calling the box office at 630-942-4000. Be sure to get your tickets for these great shows coming to the Mac. Come see the 4 Italian tenors, Viva Italia, on October 26th. Don't miss the legendary Ailey 2 on November 9th. Come celebrate Blue Note Records' 80th birthday celebration as they present the State of Jazz 2019 on November 10th. Pete the Cat is back on November 15th. The Midtown Men stars the original Broadway cast of Jersey Boys will be here on November 16th. For tickets and more information on these shows, visit atthemac.org or call 630-942-4000.